Hi there guys, it's Eastwood for Life fan here, and this is the Westerns for Life feature to the channel, where it's a collaboration that I'm doing with my good buddy Dan, Physical Media for Life, where we share our passion for American and spaghetti western movies. And we'll be doing some regular content on reviews of westerns, rewatches and new watches of the classic American westerns, and also the spaghetti and Euro westerns onto the modern day westerns. In this video I'll be talking about four westerns to start off this review series, and a couple of movies from the 50s, and we will start off with this one, Broken Arrow, a 1950 American western starring James Stewart, directed by Delmer Davis. And Delmer Davis was a director who was responsible for some other classic westerns like the original 3:10 to Yuma with Glenn Ford. And this is the original one. They did make a remake. And also another good western with Glenn Ford, and this one, Jubal, with Ernest Borgnine and Rod Steiger and Charles Bronson. But this 1950s American western, quite a groundbreaking western, this one, because Indians in American westerns were never really shown in good light. They'd always been known as the savages and the enemy, but this one, it's kind of one of the very first westerns where it shows the Indians in a kind of light, and it shows their culture. But this one, James Stewart, he plays a white scout who goes by the name of Tom Jeffords, who tries to make peace with the American settlers and Indians in the Arizona Territory in 1870. And Stewart, he tries to calm down the hostilities between the Indians and the American settlers, and he often meets up with an Apache leader to offer a peace solution. And during their meets, he kind of strucks up a respectable friendship and understanding of the culture of the Indians and how they live. And then James Stewart then starts to become attached to a fellow Indian girl, and this obviously leads to problems among the American settlers in the Arizona Territory. But good western, this one. It's not the most action-packed and violent western, as it's an early 1950s one, but a very good western. Actually was nominated for some Academy Awards. And this is the Plan B UK release, which is the DVD and Blu-ray, and it is region B. Just a shame that it doesn't contain more features, because like I say, this is a pretty groundbreaking western for its time. But James Stewart has made many great westerns. I prefer other westerns to this one, a bit more grittier, but this one, a good solid American western. This one, Broken Arrow. There was also an American release and other releases, but this one, the transfer is very good and worth picking up. Broken Arrow. And movie rating for this one, I'd give this one a solid 3 stars out of 5 for Broken Arrow. And I will leave all the trailers of the westerns I talk about in this video in the description box down below. next movie is The Man from Laramie, another James Stewart movie, and this was made in 1955, directed by Anthony Mann, and this is the fifth Western that Anthony Mann and James Stewart made together. And this is one of the very first Westerns to be shot in CinemaScope, and the wide shots and scenery in this movie is beautifully seen, and beautiful Western, beautifully shot, and another classic James Stewart Western. And in this Western, James Stewart, he plays Will Lockhart, who travels to a ranch town looking for the man who sold rifles to the Apaches, and the main reason is that his brother was killed. And then he upsets a local cattle baron and his violent son by working for one of its oldest rivals in the town, and then you get a power struggle between the rivals, and it's kind of like a very good Western drama. But this one is surprisingly quite violent for its time. You do get a scene where James Stewart, who plays Will Lockhart, he gets roughed up, and he gets dragged through a fire face down with a lasso, and he also gets his hand shot close range, and that scene surprised me. But this is the Eureka release, and it's one of the best Blu-ray transfers of a Western, an old Western from the 1950s that I have seen. So this one is highly recommended. It's a DVD and Blu-ray release, and you do get this excellent informative booklet, which I think we'll go through. And a lot of the roles that James Stewart played, he always looked a clean and distinguished character. But this one really does surprise you if you've never seen this movie, because you know he does get roughed up quite a bit in this movie, and it makes it quite a gritty and violent Western for the 1950s. And you do get some great shots, background scenery. Anthony Mann made many great Westerns with James Stewart, like Winchester 73, The Far Country. And also in this movie stars Arthur Kennedy and Donald Crisp. And Eureka really did put a fantastic release of The Man from Laramie. This is the scene where they shoot his hand. Excellent release and a classic American Western, this one. And The Man from Laramie, for me, gets a 5 out of 5 rating. One of James Stewart's finest American Westerns. And in this release you also do get some great features. You do get a Kim Newman kind of featurette, and he's quite well knowledgeable about American Westerns, and it's nice to have some features in this release. And Eureka always puts out great releases, but yeah, a fantastic release. The Man from Laramie, the fifth and final Western that James Stewart and Anthony Mann made together. The next movie is another Anthony Mann Western, and this is Man of the West, a 1958 American Western starring Gary Cooper, Lee J. Cobb and Jack Lord. Jack Lord famously known for playing Hawaii Five-0, the TV series. And in this movie, Gary Cooper, He plays Link Jones, a former outlaw who travels to Fort Worth to hire a new school teacher, and he goes there by train, and while on the train, armed robbers rob the cabin and leaves Link Jones unconscious, and he's on foot with a professional gambler and a saloon girl, and while the train escapes, he's on foot, and he eventually comes across a farmhouse where his former past catches up with him and gets revealed, because in this farmhouse is his uncle, played by Lee J. Cobb, and the armed robbers of the train, and they are there on a kind of like a hideout after robbing the train. And then the uncle, played by Lee J. Cobb, seeing his nephew, he has kind of thought that maybe that his nephew has come back to rejoin the gang and become a much stronger outlaw gang again. But this is the UK release by Eureka, DVD and Blu-ray release, and you do get the informative booklet. And again, this one, for a 1950s Western, is quite violent, and you do get a few uncomfortable moments in this, where there is a bit of a sort of punch up between Link Jones and his cousin, and it's kind of like a dogfight, and it kind of went a little bit over the top. And you also do get a kind of like a undressing, where they get the saloon girl to strip in the farmhouse, and it's quite unsettling to watch that for the time of 1950s. Although she doesn't strip down completely naked, it's a little bit unsettling. But another great Anthony Mann Western, this one, Man of the West. Not quite as good as High Noon. The only drawback of this Western is that the age gap between the uncle and the nephew, Lee J. Cobb, compared to Gary Cooper, who plays Link Jones. And Lee J. Cobb really did nail it as the uncle, the leader of the outlaw gang. And great informative booklet. And this is a scene of the punch up between Link Jones and his cousin. I do like the shootout finale in the ghost town. I can see where quite a few spaghetti westerns might have been influenced in that scene. And in this fantastic Eureka release, you do get a few features. You do get a Douglas Pye featurette, and he's like a Western historian. He talks about Westerns in the 1950s, as well as the careers of Gary Cooper and Anthony Mann. There is a scene with Lee J. Cobb. Man of the West gets a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Another classic Western directed by Anthony Mann, and the beautiful transfer. Eureka really does do these older Westerns justice with their transfers. And the last Western that we will talk about in this video is a early 70s spaghetti Western. This is the 1971 spaghetti western They Call Me Alleluia, directed by Giuliano, don't want to butcher his name, Giuliano Conomio, and he directed quite a few spaghetti westerns with Gianni Garco and also George Hilton, like this one. But this one is like a black comedy spaghetti western. It is a little silly at times, but it is a little too violent to be considered a straight up spaghetti western comedy. And in this one, George Hilton, he plays an American gunman for hire named Alleluia, and he's hired by a Mexican general to rob a case of valuable jewels to fund the Mexican Revolution. In return, Alleluia will receive a percentage. But most of the movie and storyline, the valuables get sort of stolen again, and fakes are found, and then the original valuables are found, and you also get a Russian prince who's in pursuit of the valuables, also as well as French bandits. But this one's kind of like they try to model it on the Trinity movies, which were made by Enzo Barboni, very popular in the late 60s and early 70s with Terence Hill and Bud Spencer. And they try to model this movie very similar to Corbucci's movie Companeros with Thomas Milian and Franco Nero. And you do get a great scene where George Hilton, he uses a machine gun disguised as a sewing machine, which gets used at the start of the movie and the end of the movie. And there's not too many releases of this movie. They Call Me Alleluia. There is a German release with English subtitles, but this one is the version from Thailand, which does have an English audio. And if you like your spaghetti westerns a little bit silly and comedic like they were in the early 70s, and then this one will be a good watch. But George Hilton, he made many spaghetti westerns, a Uruguayan South American actor who moved to Italy in the 60s, where he made his name in spaghetti western movies. There's George Hilton, and he passed away summer of last year, and he made his name in spaghetti westerns movies, giallo movies, onto horror and then action movies into the 80s. But this one, I would give this one an average watch of 2 to 2.5 stars out of 5. Not the best spaghetti western comedy, but watchable, and it does have its moments in this movie. They Call Me Alleluia. So guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video of American and spaghetti western reviews. Let us know if you've seen these movies. We'll be doing more regular western content reviews in myself and also Dan, Physical Media for Life. Check out the link of the westerns that he reviews, and I'll leave that in the description box, as well as the trailers for all the westerns that I spoke about in this update. So guys, till the next video, stay healthy and well, and stay westerns for life.